Welcome back to the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K Mo. You have on next, but he is a family member of mine. He's my big brother. He is a mentor, someone I love dearly. But my man in Christ, my man in there's so many different levels of this mental health space. We'll see who that is when we come back. Welcome back to the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K Mo. Thank you for stopping in. Today, I am here with, like I mentioned before, a big brother of mine, just a brother in Christ, somebody I really respect and who's known me almost all my life. And that is Reverend William H. Lamar. Thank you for being on today.
Oh man, it's my pleasure, Corey. Good to see you. You're right, almost all your life, not quite.
Yeah, almost all my life, yeah. And like I said, big brother of mine, somebody I really do respect, especially in this space of mental health with men. You know, we've had a lot of our conversations offline, and I thought it would be great for you to be on so we could talk about some of those things, because we know that a lot of men, even who we grew up with, have had some issues and problems and are still having those mental barriers within their lives. And we want to talk about it and see, especially during this National Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I wanted to have a series, and you are my first guest for this series for this month. So thank you for being on and agreeing to do this with me.
Honored, my brother, honored.
So please just tell, our audience like who you are, what you stand for, just a little bit about yourself, and we can go right into it.
Sure. So I'm Bill Lamar, a native of Macon, Georgia. And, for all of my life, I have been blessed with strong family, strong connections, a larger community through church and other people who poured into me. And my vocational path has taken me into pastoral service, but also into justice work, organizing work, political work, writing and thinking into being a new world where there's justice and equity for all folks. So that's what I do currently. I'm privileged to serve as pastor at Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, D.C. But the topic of discussion, Corey, around mental health is so important. I think one of the things I want us to think about is, I don't know of any Black families who don't have one person who has struggled with mental health. And normally we jokingly talk about the uncle who lives upstairs, right? But it's beyond that. I mean, we know people who suffer with manic, we call it bipolar now, schizophrenia and other types of ailments. And we got to talk about it. We have to put it on the table.
Yeah. So, again, we've had some long, really hard conversations about this, things I've dealt with, things that you even disclosed to me that are very personal. But I think even with us even having a conversation by ourselves, I think towards the end of each conversation, like how many other brothers are not having this conversation? How many other guys are not really having the type of connection that you and I having, and even some similar things that you may not have known that I was going through, and vice versa. And we've been able to connect on those different types of viewpoints. And so, if I didn't sit down with you with relationship talks, with things about family, personal things like that, you may not have known a lot of that stuff about me, and vice versa. And so I think a lot of men don't even know that we have deeper deeper thoughts, deeper issues that we are all facing that we don't even have, because we've been so internalized with just sucking it up, smiling, wearing a mask and things of that nature. But what a better time to even have this conversation and talk about it when they've made it a men's mental health month. So thank you for sharing that with us and just who you are. But I want to dive right into it so that we can have this conversation. So, what are your thoughts about this month? I didn't necessarily even know that there was a men's mental health month, except for like maybe a year or so. And so for us to even understand why it's here, why do you feel like it's so important for us to have a month to kind of celebrate and really talk about things like this with men?
I think, unfortunately, many male relationships are surface.
Yeah.
We don't really connect at the point of our pain and our challenges. And I think that setting aside a time for men to talk about our own mental health and challenges is necessary. I think if taken seriously, it could indeed save lives, save relationships, save futures, save generations. So my first story, when I was 21, 22, and went to seminary after I left Florida A&M, I was feeling different. It was a different kind of thing. I felt tremendous mental pressure. It was the first time that I had really stopped long enough to evaluate myself to say, I think I need something more than what I've had. I need a different conversation. I need a different interface with professionals. And so I decided to go to counseling and psychological services at Duke University. And what's interesting, Corey, is the largest professional or graduate student population that counseling and psychological services saw were divinity school students.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is a lot of people say, well, just pray about it, pray about it, pray about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that what we need to understand is that a part of prayer is discerning the wisdom that God gives people to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is nothing sacrilegious or unchristian or unfaithful or unspiritual about talking with professionals to help you. I was at a different place in my life
Mm-hmm.
and I needed that. And there are other times in my life during and after divorce where I've had to seek professionals, seek therapists, and they have helped me to be clearer about myself. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the biggest gift they give you, Corey, at least in Bill Lamar's estimation, is they keep us from self-deception, from telling ourselves lies about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
when we pretend to be healthy when we are the exact opposite.
Yeah. I can't say that I've had it that deep, but my story with losing a parent at an earlier age. And a lot of people don't think 20 is in your 20s is a early age to lose a parent. However, I always say I lost her probably when I was 19 or 20. And I say that because you and I've talked about this, the parent who was a secondary parent to you, I would say, that you saw, I didn't see. And I have I have a god brother that I love, and I have other people, and just the information that you all have poured into me to make me understand what type of person that was. I had to really find that, and I found it through conversation with other people. I find it through just reading, understanding, and finding myself. And I think that helped me so much with understanding relationships. And I've shared this with you, is the relationships that you do have with people, not just romantic relationships. I think you hold those a little bit more sacred, and I think that's why even when you talk to me about, your relationship now, or your queen now that you have in your life, how different that is with you, and appreciating that person even more, with going through the situation that you had to go through, so that you can appreciate people. And most people, when even when you're in a relationship, a failed relationship that may not work, it's also like a death, because it's something that you have to, a rebirth that you have to figure out, and then go into the new situation, and you appreciate those people a little bit more.
Oh, most definitely. And I think, unfortunately, you often don't know the value of people in your life until you no longer have access to them, until they have transitioned. And I think that celebrating relationships, understanding the value that they bring, and really understanding that our own wealth and vibrance as human beings is connected to how much life and connection we have with other people.
Right.
And so I'm telling you, and I think a big part of a lot of our challenges, I think that this pandemic may have
Mm-hmm.
indeed exacerbated, is people being disconnected,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That when we are alone without human connection, it often makes things much worse for us. We have to have that kind
Mm-hmm.
of connection.
Absolutely. Um, let's go into that next question. I mean, I know that you and I have shared who we are, what we've kind of used to kind of get to this place, but what about the other men? You know, why do you feel that men are battling with getting the support they need to be healthy?
It sounds cliche, Corey, but I still
Hmm.
think there are a lot of men who think that what makes them masculine and tough is roughing it and doing it all by themselves, trying to fix, trying to figure everything out. When really, when you think about it, when men gather together in small groups, when they do the things that men do, even if they don't actually pierce the real challenges that are weighing down on them, they're seeking community. We all seek community in different ways, some ways healthy, some ways unhealthy. And I think we want to move beyond that stereotype, that cliche of the rugged individual who solves all of his problems by himself. And to be clear, I'm thankful that for the past 25, 30 years, I've had a group of brothers that I can talk to. That I talked to one of them on yesterday. We've had similar challenges in our life, and he reached out and he said, "Hey man, I'm having this kind of conversation tomorrow with some folks professionally. Give me your opinion." Because I know that you've been through the same thing. And so, what I want to make sure that we understand as part of our spiritual life, our life of faith, is to be in communion with other people. I don't like songs like Long as I Got Jesus, Don't Need Nobody Else. That's ridiculous. Even Jesus had a community of disciples with him. We need community. We were made for community. James Weldon Johnson in his poem Creation says, and God said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a man. I'll make me human beings. And so the real man doesn't try to go it alone, but the real man builds community, and the real man finds other men that he can trust, Corey, like you and I have found in one another,
Right.
with his vulnerability, with his issues. That's what we have to redefine toxic masculinity
Mhm.
toward this vulnerable shared manhood that lifts and serves and sacrifices.
Do you think that that's a societal thing, or you think that's a community thing that we've created for ourselves? Because I would say that a lot of men that I know who struggle with it, who say that they know themselves, or may glorify being in being therapy, or saying that they have it all together. Um, they frown upon, I mean, actually getting to that place to actually get the help that they need, or having a conversation and being vulnerable. How does one even get to that place? I mean, did it happen for you just because, or
Mhm.
was it because of that situation that you just described in your 20s? You was like, I have to go to this.
You know what? I think for me, I was always taught that manhood was about vulnerability and love and sharing. My father modeled that in the home.
Hmm.
He always told us, if you have anything you want to talk about, talk to
Hmm.
me, talk to your mother. So I knew that what happened for me is I matured to a place where I needed a different kind of professional to help me to navigate
Hmm.
through my issues. And so I think that I saw it because it was modeled, but I think that in our culture, we tend to celebrate the men who go it alone. And
Hmm.
here's the thing, though, Corey, that's a myth. That's a lie.
Right.
No man has ever done anything by himself
Right.
without assistance, without
Mhm.
support,
Right.
whether that is Martin King and the civil rights movement,
Hmm.
whether that's Berry Gordy and Motown,
Right.
whether that whatever you want to use, they
Right.
had a huge number of people to come alongside them and share gifts. So I think that what we got to do is tell people that whole mythological narrative that Corey Morris did this by himself.
Right.
Well, that lie makes other people think I can. No, you don't. You need community.
Right.
And so really we have to start asking basic questions. I think I feel most alive in communities of people that I trust,
Right.
who understand me.
Right.
And if we can take that and make sure that men understand, that is where you will begin to flourish. You can flourish as an individual when you know that these communities exist.
And I think the one fear that most people have when you say that, you may have to let some of those old friends go.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's not the level of vulnerability that we have to show to other men is may not be received well. And I think that's the hardest part when you talk about being, maturing. That's a part of maturing. You have to leave some of those men who may be toxic, if they don't want to move on with you with your new journey, with having those level of conversations. Then you got to make some changes.
Well, Corey, one of the things that I also, and I want to be clear about this, I think most people will take this for granted, but it needs to be spoken plainly and clearly. You cannot be vulnerable with everyone.
Right.
You cannot trust everyone. And so how do you cultivate relationships of trust? I like being in places, Corey, where I can be me.
Right.
Where I don't have to pretend. And really, I'm not going to places where I have to pretend.
Absolutely.
It does too much damage for my soul.
Right.
And so what I find is if I'm in a place where I'm trying as often as possible to be as authentic as I can be, then that will bring and attract to me people who appreciate that authenticity and more often than not share that authenticity themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same with me, man. Like, I'm a very direct person. People that know me, I'm a very direct person. Either you love that or you not. And I don't like to use the direct per se. I like people being honest with me. I like people telling me the truth. And I think you can only receive that from people who really want the best for you. And I try to only keep those type of people around. And it may hurt, but as long as you have the people around you who you all have the same beliefs and you're moving in the same direction, I think that's what makes it easier. It's never easy to hear, of honest stuff sometimes, but I think if you stay true to yourself and you can provide that same level of support for others, then that's when they can respect that.
No doubt, man. 100%.
So I wanted to go into our next question. Why isn't spirituality enough for men?
Well,
because you mentioned that earlier, and I think I wanted to really touch on that. Like, why do you feel like that's not enough? I grew up in the church, that AME and strong faith in God, strong believer in God. But at what point? Because I liked how you said that, but I wanted to know, like, we as a community, especially those believers, grew up knowing like it was frowned upon to go to see a therapist. It was frowned upon to do these types of things. Something's wrong with you if you went to those places. And God is, like you said, God was the only thing that you needed. And we know as we've evolved into our next generation, what was that thing for you? And you would say to those folks who may be struggling with that.
Well, I would say, the way that I read that question is this, that it is not enough to go to church and to think that going somewhere on Sunday will fix all that ails you. That's not the purpose of gathering for worship. The purpose of gathering for worship is to be aware of and drawn into the mystery and beauty of God, and to be aware of and drawn into the mystery and beauty of human fellowship. It often makes us aware of the challenges that we have to work on. And so what I would say is I want to redefine spirituality to say that connecting with therapists and people with whom we can speak of our pain, who can help us, that is spiritual work. That is deep and rich interior work. The challenge really of the therapy that I have tried to undergo, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, is they try to make you see who you truly are. There is nothing more spiritual than that. The
Mm-hmm.
purpose of being in a relationship with God is for God to expose the divinity in us, but for God also to expose in us how far away we can be from God's intention for us and for human beings. And so to me, the therapeutic moments I have had that have been transcendent have been spiritual, because what they do is they burn the lies and they burn the deception away, so that I have to deal with the reality of who I am. If that's not spiritual, then nothing is. And I want to be clear, therapy is good, but also if you just have practices with family members or friends to say, this is troubling me. These are the sources of some of my pain, some of my difficulty, and that can help to keep us healthy. When you buy a vehicle, you got to take that vehicle in to get it looked at.
Yeah.
You got to go in for physicals,
Yeah.
body, for checkups. And I think we need that same thing for our mental health and for our interior strength. And so to me, there is nothing unspiritual or aspiritual about connecting with those people who can bring us closer to the truth.
Yeah, that goes right into our, I'm speechless when you say that, because I'm really just learning from you when you come to that, because that's your profession, that's your passion, that's your whole life. And so I really want to know, like, especially being saved, right? Somebody being saved, what is the difference between somebody being saved and being mentally aware?
Well,
I don't know if that's the same answer you just gave, but like, what is the difference, or what would you tell our listeners, especially men who are listening to this? Because a lot of us have maybe are trying to find ourselves a little bit more, and it's very important for us to, when I grew up in a church, all you saw was men. You saw families, you saw men. That vision that we had growing up, and it seems like that's dwindling in a way. But I want to learn, and I want to know what you feel about what are those two differences, so that we can motivate other men to try to get to that place.
So let me first say this: my understanding of salvation is not the typical understanding. So the typical Christian understanding, by and large, is that you're saved, meaning when you die, you go to heaven. But Jesus never asked anybody, if you died tonight, would you go to heaven or would you go to hell? As a matter of fact, that question, I think, would be unintelligible for Jesus. Jesus asked people if they wanted to be made whole, if they wanted to be well. He was trying to situate them to enjoy God's abundance in the here and now. So to me, what salvation looks like is really, by definition, salvation is something that God does for us that we cannot do for ourselves. So what God does for us that we cannot do for ourselves is to keep us connected to who God is. We can't do that.
Right.
God is the conduit. So yes, to me, salvation is ultimate awareness. It is ultimate awareness of who God is and who I am.
Right.
It's an ultimate awareness of what God intends for me as much as God reveals. And so to me, part of salvation is mental awareness, right? That the salvation that the ancients knew when they used that language was about a physical salvation, a spiritual salvation, a mental and economic. It encompassed the totality of human existence. For us, we have only made it mean one thing. And you and I both know, the thing that folks talk about, psychosomatic illnesses, where your body is affected by your mental state. You can literally, as the old people said when we were growing up, worry yourself to death.
Yes.
You can die of a broken heart, right? So an unsettled mental space leads to an unsettled physical reality, leads to an unsettled spiritual reality. So I'll stop here. You and I grew up hearing this every Sunday in AME churches. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul, right? All your strength. So they understood the intersection of loving God with heart, mind, soul, and strength. And we need to understand that those things cannot be separated, but they are a harmonious whole. And when your mental health suffers, everything else about you suffers as well.
And I would say that, for me, I think growing up with even family members or people who may have gotten sick, a lot of our community, we suffered from strokes. We struggle from heart attacks and things of that nature. I'm sure we've all had family members to have those things. And for me, that's something that I had to deal with. And so I found myself having aha moments throughout my life. And I think for me, when it came to working and seeing that, going to the doctor and hearing them ask those type of questions for you, and you're stressed out. But I think as men, we're so conditioned to take everything. We're so conditioned to not complain, or even in the church, not complain. You're blessed. You don't have anything to complain about. Which for me, it was just more just speaking it out loud to just get it out so I can move forward. And I say that because once I started feeling that pressure, my body started feeling it as well. And at that very moment, I had to take a step back. And even though I always had men like yourself or other men around to talk to, I had to really take another step back. And a friend of mine, actually a college buddy of mine, said, you're so conditioned to what most people consider as stress, you don't even know it's stress. And I think for a lot of men, a lot of Black men, especially men who have to endure a lot, we don't even know the difference between stress and regular stress, or just being normal, because it's so much that comes along with being a man, especially during this time. So can you tell me what was your aha moment for you to say, you know what, I need to take this step back, or to find your purpose and in this whole mental space?
I think for me, Corey, simply put, I was unfroze. I was frozen and unable to thaw myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I was stuck, and I could not stop the music from playing that held me in place. And so I knew that I needed to talk with someone to help me to get unstuck, because my normal strategies to unstick myself failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to say this, Corey, I think it's very important that we shouldn't wait until we get stuck.
Absolutely.
We should build the practices of conversations, of checking in, of having friends close enough, like your friend you mentioned.
Right.
That's a true friend and brother indeed, who can say, wait a minute, the reason you don't know your stress is because you carry so much stress that stress is your normal.
Right.
And you've got to have people close enough to you who can say, hey, let me be clear with you. And you have to be willing to hear truth that is hard.
Right. And I think you answered the last question, which was, what should people do to get help and support? And what you can answer that yourself, but what I'm gathering, even from that particular answer, was let's make it something that we do as a regular.
Yes.
Let's not wait until we're sick or we get to that place. Let's have those conversations on a regular basis and do it for each other. And I've had these conversations with other men, but like you said, we're all surface a lot of the times, and we don't really want to address it. But I try to make sure I talk to my friends and ask them, how you doing? How you feeling? How's the family doing? But how are you doing? I hear those kids in the background. How you doing? How you doing, man? You good? And I think we should do a better job of that as men, to check up on one another and provide that support and build that trust for all of us. So what about you?
Well, man, I think you're exactly right. You build it. And one of the things, you and I talked about your mother often, her passion was around gathering Black men and giving them safe spaces.
Right.
She did that for us in a high school that was 90% white. And she made clear to us that our Blackness was something to celebrate and that our brotherhood was something to protect. And you are living into that ancestral reality. It's in your DNA. Right. You are extending her legacy. And so you find ways to become a part of groups of Black men who do this and to create those spaces. And so I'm telling everyone, I'm asking everyone to take an inventory of yourself. One test that I have, Corey, for me, can I sit with myself in silence?
Right.
Or am I always looking for a distraction? Can I listen to the truth that I'm trying to tell myself about myself, that spirit is trying to, and when I keep running from myself is when I know I need a partner to sit me still, hold up a mirror. And it's difficult.
Right.
But it is the thing that heals.
Well, I mean, we can end on that one. And I would definitely say, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on this platform, speaking your truth, being honest, and being vulnerable with not just me, but with other men. Hopefully we can help and shape those other men so they can go out and do the same thing that we're doing with each other, with other men, and so that we can have a better outlook and outcome with the men that are in this that are out here nowadays. So I'm tired of getting the bad rap. I want us to have a better outcome with when we walk down the street, and we can still have those connections with one another. I think one of the lawyer Crump from Tallahassee, he had a video that played on one of his platforms, social media platforms, and all it did was showed Black people looking nice, smelling nice, being free, young kids too, respecting one another. And that's the community that I remember, and I want us to be able to get back to that. So I think thank you for that, and for us to continue to have these conversations. And brother Lamar, you know, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, brother. God bless. We'll be in touch.
All right, brother. Have a good one. And again, thank you, listeners, for the support and listening tonight. I hope they really helped you out, and you can continue to listen to the other videos on YouTube and Facebook. So if you need some support, you need some help, you need somebody to talk to as a coach, look at Tomorrow's Men and follow me on all platforms. Good night. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for coming onto the show. You can find us at tomorrowsmen.com, on Facebook at Tomorrow's Men, and on Instagram at Tomorrow's Men. Please click and subscribe to the button below. I'm your host, K Mo. Until we meet again, know we love you. Work with us, be with us, and know we're coming from the heart. Peace.